51.
The topic of discussion this morning is around Microenterprise home kitchens, or MICOs as we lovingly refer to it. A MICO is essentially defined as a food facility that's operated by a resident in a private home where the food is stored, it's handled, it's prepared, and then ultimately served to customers. If the board does elect to opt in, thus allowing for Microenterprise home kitchens to operate, it would apply to all of the cities within the county. Because simply the county or the board is the local enforcement agency.
Good morning to the Board of Directors, and thank you for the presentation from Environmental Health. I myself am a wonderful homemade cook. I encourage the MICO to exist because a lot of the people that are underground, street tacos, tamale persons, soul food cooks, your bacon wrapped hot dogs folks on the street, or whatever they're selling, they have more of a following than most of the restaurants do. Literally, I hate to put this out there, but the neighborhood that I live in, I see them all the time on the street. It's a common thing. Friday, Saturday nights, people drive up, they get their tacos, they get their street dogs, they get their full-fledged meals, and most of the little local restaurants around us, they're empty. No one's there patronizing them. That says a lot by itself because a lot of people prefer street-cooked, home-cooked meals versus a restaurant. Sanitation is a burden in all areas. Restaurants, I've been in some restaurants where it was so filthy I walked out and didn't want to eat. With the environmental health coming out to inspect the homes, I think that they will emphasize the sanitation in a person's home. I'm sure they wouldn't approve anyone. You walk in there and you see crumbs all over the floor and the place doesn't look like it's been mopped and swept in weeks. So I really encourage the board to review and dissect the bill. But please take into consideration that it will give people an opportunity to bring their food to the table and to make it legal for everyone and to share a vision that everyone's not able to afford a restaurant.
I believe that the law is well-intentioned. Wanting to create economic opportunity is something I think that we all support. But I also believe that this statewide approval of street vending, if you will, or authorization to opt in or out, has a great deal of unintended and unknown consequences. I have serious concerns relative to public health. There is no way to discern who in fact is adhering to our public health standards and who is not, especially since the only time that an inspector, environmental health inspector, can go out and inspect is by after having made an appointment.
That's correct.
That doesn't work for me. The other thing is that I have concerns, and this is complaints I've personally received, and that is that employees of current restaurants are now taking matters into their own hands, and they are leaving their employer and employment and taking those menus and those recipes, and they're starting out their own micro businesses and boasting. And I know that's normal, again, human behavior, but bringing it down to the least common denominator is the fact that now these individuals don't have to get a business license, they don't have to get a brick and mortar building, they don't have to get a food truck, they don't need to do anything, they don't even need to comply with our environmental health services requirements. And that is quite irking to me. I'm afraid we really do need to have more input. I want to hear from the code enforcement. I want to hear from our haulers. I mean, again, just tapping on very simple, superficial concerns for which I believe we do not have answers to.
When we talk about how to empower our small business owners or people trying to make a living, many of the arguments that you made today were the same that we heard with short-term rentals in that industry, and how that provided an opportunity for economic development without having to have the the brick and mortar of a hotel. We didn't really weigh what that impact would be on the hoteliers. It just provided a unique opportunity for economic development from a different sector that played into our county. And so I just wanted to provide that also. And I know a lot of caterers get their start in their home, and then when they are successful, then they can move into that restaurant type business. So those are the only points I wanted to just sort of counter.
We don't allow our little leagues, teams, schools to sell hot dogs or hamburgers anymore. They can't do it, even in their own facilities where they have kitchens or semi-kitchens. We eliminated that. And so this is a well-intended thought, but in my mind hasn't thoroughly been vetted and doesn't warrant the opportunity. There's too many unknowns for me. And when I say that, I mean, if you're a business owner, I mean, so how are these people insured? What happens when somebody gets hurt? Are we going to require workers' compensation? Are we going to have liability insurance? How are we going to indemnify operations, just like a standard business? And I haven't heard any of that other than this is a great idea, and I get it. Yeah, it's a wonderful idea without the overhead to utilize something that you have. And with Supervisor Rao, as far as the home, accessing the homes on short-term rentals, I see a lot of problems still with that today, because when your house gets next door to you gets invaded by 20 kids for spring breaks, and some of the problems that have gone on there, I'm still challenged with that. But on this issue, it's more of a health issue. Let's think about it again. So let's say this. Our Little League kids can't serve hot dogs or hamburgers or anything else that's other unless it's packaged and put in a microwave, okay, because it's too unsanitary. But we're going to say, hey, go open a kitchen in your neighborhood, and as far as the traffic goes, we can play with all types of numbers, but you're talking an additional 20 trips a week. If you happen to live on a cul-de-sac and that's where your kids go out and play ball, you're not playing ball in the cul-de-sac anymore if there's 20 cars coming 3 or 4 an hour. I'm sorry, interrupts the game.
I am attracted to this idea, notwithstanding the potential downsides, for a whole bunch of reasons. The first is that as much as we love our brick and mortar businesses, our job sitting up here isn't to pick the winners and losers. And all of us, I have heard all of us over the years give speeches about the need to empower our individuals, our startups, people with entrepreneurial instincts, people who can't have traditional jobs, their ability to find a different way to bring in income. Maybe it's because they want to start a restaurant someday, but maybe it's just because they want to make ends meet. Maybe it's just because grandma had a really good tamale recipe and everybody asked for their tamales. I mean, there are a whole bunch of reasons why people might want to have a Miko. And it's not our job to say a Miko isn't as good as a brick and mortar restaurant, or a food truck isn't as good as a brick and mortar restaurant. As the economy and our means of communication and technology change, people are going to change how they do business, and we shouldn't be picking and choosing the winners and losers among them. So we've got constituents who see this as an opportunity to either pursue a passion or to get into a business or to make ends meet, and we ought to be supporting and embracing that. I think that what this law brings is the state's recognition that there need to be some basic food handling and safety rules looked at in home enterprise kitchens to give the public some degree of comfort with what they're buying. Frankly, there are already people doing this out of their kitchens, and there are already people buying out of the kitchens without that comfort. So I don't even know that the public needs a great deal of that level of comfort if they're already doing it. So we're trying to bring a new level of security and some reassurance to maybe expand these kind of businesses. I think that this is something we ought to pursue. We ought to be talking to our cities more. We ought to be encouraging our legislators to clarify it, and I hope that we'll be able to take a more proactive role as new laws are brought forward in the state, that we say, hey, could you make a distinction between cities and counties so that we could do something to benefit and serve our own residents without imposing on cities and their elected officials.
I would try to meet in the middle ground and say, let's look at this for a year and study it and talk to our partners. And I'm going to make that as a motion, Mr. Chair, that we adopt today.
I'm not sure what we're studying. Are you saying allow it to happen and then study its effects?
No, we have Riverside County. We have other counties that are allowing this. We can see how they move forward more closely, like any other new thing. We can talk to our cities further. We can talk with environmental health further to understand their concerns. And maybe we can go fix the policy again, like with our Little League Park, so they can sell hot dogs and hamburgers as well at the same time.
I'm not sure how many of us are going to be up here in a year. So
I'm not.
Well, would you like me to amend that to 6 months?
Yes, please.
I'll amend my motion to 6 months.
I am concerned that this is one size fit all. Coming from legislature, we made that mistake many times, that we think the state's all the same, and it's not. I see some very practical applications of this ordinance in certain areas, the mountain communities, the new ordinance we have with the short-term rentals and other places in the desert where you don't have a lot of facilities to provide food. The difference for us, we know there's a lot of those micro kitchens already exist in the county. The difference with the county putting a seal of approval on it and inspecting it once a year means we're part of that liability if something does happen, versus right now people are kind of doing on their own thing. So it gives us a chance to really review a lot, then I feel much more comfortable going on. I'd love the opportunity to give our small business and our brilliant chefs in this county the opportunity to share their food and actually make a little return on it. But a little more structure around it versus saying yay or nay would be my